At the foot of the Abbey wall, the shelter sits low against the ground, where night gathers close to stone. The wall above is heavy and ordered, built for bells, prayers, doors, and measured paths. Below it, the shelter belongs to smaller needs. Straw lies pressed into the earth. A cloak hangs near the entrance, still damp at the hem. A wrapped piece of bread waits beside a wooden bowl. The animals breathe in the dark, and their warmth moves softly through the narrow space. Nothing here asks to be admired. The place has been made from what could be spared. A low roof, a timber brace, a corner of packed ground, and a door that does not quite meet the frame. The Abbey is near enough to cast its shadow, but nearness is not comfort. The shelter belongs to the edge of things. It is close to order, close to warmth, close to bells and food and dry stone. Yet it remains outside them, holding its own small night. The entrance is narrow. Mud has dried in uneven ridges where boots cross the threshold before dark. A strip of straw has been pulled inward by the last step. The air near the door feels colder than the air near the animals. It carries the smell of wet wool, old leather, and ground that has not had time to dry. A peg in the wall holds a cloak by one shoulder, so the cloth hangs crookedly, heavier at the lower edge where the rain or mist found it. The cloak is not a sign of adventure. It is only work left to dry as well as it can. Its folds have stiffened in places. Its inner side keeps a little body warmth, though the outer side has gone cold. Near it, the boots stand apart from one another, not carefully arranged, but not thrown down either. The left boot leans slightly, as if the foot came out of it with more weariness than care. Mud gathers around the sole and darkens the seam where leather meets the ground. The animals are not crowded into spectacle. They are close enough to warm the shelter and quiet enough not to disturb it. Their bodies make a slow, living heat behind the straw partition. A flank shifts, a hoof settles, breath touches the low air and disappears. The shepherd has not been given a clean room, but the animals give what stone cannot give. They make a weather of warmth, uneven and simple, held near the floor. Against the inner wall, straw has been pressed flat by use. Some of it is fresh enough to keep a pale color. Some is darkened where damp entered from the ground. The pattern tells more than a face would. Someone has sat there many times, knees drawn in, cloak over the shoulders, back resting against the rough boards. The straw keeps the shallow shape of rest without turning it into comfort. It offers a little softness, then gives way. A small piece of bread waits in a cloth. The cloth has been folded twice, not with ceremony, but to keep crumbs from the straw and grit from the crust. One corner of the bread has been broken away. The torn edge is dry now, and the rest has been saved for morning. Beside it, a wooden cup stands mouth down. Its rim is worn smooth where many hands have used it. The cup does not belong to plenty. It belongs to getting through the night. Above the cup, the wall boards show old scratches where tools, rope, or buckles have brushed them. A crook rests in the corner, its handle darkened by long use. The curve is not polished for display. It is polished where a palm has carried it. The lower end is rougher, nicked by stone, frozen ground, and the kind of work that leaves no record except damage on wood. It leans there quietly, ready to be taken again before light. The Abbey wall outside keeps its colder silence. Through the thin places near the door, the night presses in. Somewhere beyond the shelter, the stones rise cleanly into darkness, and the high windows hold no welcome for this lower place, yet the shelter is not abandoned. It has its own order. Boots near the door, cloak near the peg, bread away from the damp, crook within reach, straw gathered where a tired body can fold itself smaller. This order is practical, and because it is practical, it is gentle. No one has had to speak it aloud. The body learns where things should be when morning will come cold and early. The boots must be near enough to find in darkness. The cloak must be where it can be taken before the first wind touches the chest. The bread must be where a hand can close around it before the animals are moved. The roof is low enough that the shelter feels made for bending. The beams have absorbed smoke, damp, and the touch of many seasons. In one place, a wedge of old cloth has been pushed into a crack. It does not stop the cold completely, but it slows the draft. Near another gap, straw has been tucked between boards. The repair is not beautiful. It is enough for one more night, which is sometimes the most a poor place can promise. A small, covered ember gives the room its lowest light. It is not bright enough to sharpen corners. It only separates the nearest things from the dark. The rim of the bowl, the lifted edge of straw, the wet shine on a boot, the bend of the crook. The rest of the shelter stays soft and uncertain. Darkness here is not empty. It is full of cloth, breath, wood, and the quiet patience of things used past their best condition. Near the animals, the warmth is strongest. It reaches the straw first, then the boards, then the edge of the cloak. It does not reach the doorway. There, cold remains in the latch, in the mud, and in the gap beneath the door. The shelter is divided without a wall. Warmth on one side, night on the other, and a tired human place between them. That narrow middle is where the work of staying rests. The shepherd's place is marked by absence rather than by portrait. A shallow hollow in the straw shows where a hip rested. A darker patch on the wall shows where a shoulder often leaned. The bread is saved, not finished. The cup is turned down, not lost. These small decisions make the room human without needing a face. They show someone who has learned to use little things carefully, because little things must last. Outside, the Abbey may have stronger doors and drier floors, but the shelter has a different truth. It knows the labor that happens below the wall, after gates are closed and lamps are lowered. It knows the hands that bring animals in from weather, and the feet that carry mud to the threshold. It also knows the hunger that saves part of a crust, and the tiredness that does not ask to be witnessed. The place keeps these traces without pride. The night weather has softened to a steady cold. It is not a storm. It is the ordinary chill that enters seams, sleeves, and boards. It touches the metal ring near the door and turns it dull. It rests in the stones outside. It lies across the yard beyond the shelter, where the ground is too dark to show detail. The cold is not dramatic. It is simply there, patient and complete, waiting for anything warm to tire. Inside, the animals answer with slow heat. Their breathing does not solve the cold, but it changes it. The air near them feels less sharp. Straw close to their bodies stays drear. A woolen edge left over the rail has taken on that warmth and holds it faintly. This is not comfort as the Abbey might know it. It is comfort made by nearness, by shared shelter, by the stubborn fact of living bodies gathered under a low roof. The crook in the corner gives the room a line of duty. It points upward from the floor, then bends back on itself, as if work has a shape that must always return. Near it, a short length of cord is coiled loosely. The cord has gathered grit in its twist. It may bind a gate, mend a strap, or hold a bundle closed. Nothing here has one perfect use. Each object waits to be useful in whatever way morning asks. A wooden stool stands near the wall, too low to look comfortable. Its seat is worn unevenly. One leg has been packed with a sliver of wood to stop it rocking. On the floor beside it, crushed straw and dirt have mixed into a dark, soft line. Someone sat there long enough to remove boots, unwrap bread, Listen to the animals settle, and measure the remaining cold. The stool keeps that brief pause in its rough grain. The shelter's silence is layered. There is the silence of the Abbey wall outside, high and hard. There is the silence of straw, which takes sound into itself. There is the silence between animal breaths. There is the silence of tools waiting for morning. None of it is empty. It is made from fatigue, order, and the small mercy of being out of the wind. The place does not become larger than it is. It becomes clear. By the middle of the night, the doorway has become a border. Beyond it, the ground slopes into darkness, and the wall rises beyond the yard. Inside, the shelter keeps its few possessions close: a bowl, a cup, a cloak, and a pair of boots. The crook, the cord, the straw, and the saved bread remain near them. Each item is plain, but together they make a map of survival. Not a grand survival. A daily one. The kind that repeats until a life is measured by weather and morning tasks. The breadcloth has picked up a faint smell of smoke and wool. It lies folded with one edge tucked under, as if a hand did it almost without thought. The cup beside it has dried on the outside, but a darker ring remains near the base. The bowl carries a small scrape across its inner curve. These details do not explain a life. They only let the night stay close enough to be believed. A narrow shelf has been set into the wall between two rough boards. On it rests a small knife, a bent nail, and a twist of cord. The knife is not for violence. Its edge is dull from cutting leather, bread, and stubborn fiber. The bent nail has been kept because a poor place does not throw away what might still hold. The shelf is less storage than memory, a place where usefulness waits in fragments. Near the back of the shelter, straw rises against a half wall where the animals have pushed it aside. The line is uneven. A few strands catch the ember light. Beneath them, the floor is dark with use. This corner carries the strongest sense of warmth, but it also carries the strongest smell of work. Animal, wool, mud, old wood, damp rope, and tired breath meet there, making a shelter that is honest before it is pleasant. The Abbey bell has not rung for morning yet. The time before it belongs to small keeping. A hand might wake and pull the cloak closer. A boot might be nudged upright. The covered ember might be checked with care. The animals might shift and settle again. Nothing needs to happen loudly. The shelter knows that much of labor is waiting in the correct place until the next required movement arrives. Later in the dark, the cold lies over everything. The door, the stones, the crook handle, and the cup. It cannot erase the warmth near the animals, but it presses gently around it. The shelter answers by holding its shape. Straw remains gathered. Cloth remains folded. Bread remains saved. The room's strength is not resistance. It is endurance. The wall outside still belongs to the Abbey. The shelter below belongs to those who work near it without entering its ease. That difference remains, but it is not spoken with bitterness here. It is present in the height of the stones, the roughness of the roof, and the way one small ember must do the work of many lamps. The night does not argue with this. It simply shows how people make a lower warmth under a higher wall. Toward the end of the night, the shelter grows quieter. Even the animals seem to breathe more slowly. The cloak has lost some of its damp shine. The mud on the boots has dulled. The bread stays wrapped. The crook waits in the corner, angled toward the door. Morning has not yet arrived, but the room is already arranged for it. This is the calm before work, not the calm after escape. In that quieter hour, the smallest surfaces begin to matter more. A loose straw end lies across the threshold, pointing toward the cold outside. A bead of damp rests on the lower board of the door. The ember has sunk under its cover, so the light no longer reaches the roof beams. It stays near the floor, where boots, straw, and the wooden cup can still be found by touch. The shelter holds no promise that the next day will be easier. It only keeps the necessary things from scattering before morning. The cloak remains near the hand. The crook remains near the door. The saved bread remains dry enough to carry. The animals keep breathing in their slow, shared rhythm, and that rhythm makes the room less lonely than stone would make it. The final warmth is low and close to the ground. It touches straw, wood, leather, and the side of the covered ember. The doorway is still cold. The wall outside is still high. But inside the shelter, a small order remains intact. It is enough to carry a tired body until first light. Enough to keep bread dry, boots near, animals settled, and the next task within reach. When sleep finally comes, it does not change the shelter. It only deepens what is already there. The cloak hangs. The cup waits. The animals breathe. The straw keeps its shallow hollow. Beneath the Abbey wall, where comfort is narrow and warmth is borrowed from living bodies, the night lowers itself around the little room. Nothing asks for more. The shelter keeps its small mercy until dawn. The last darkness remains practical and kind. It does not offer plenty, but it keeps the few necessary things near one another. The saved crust, the drying cloak, the worn crook, and the slow breath of animals make a small circle of care beneath the wall. Morning will ask for movement soon enough. For now, the shelter holds still.